All right, it is 10:30, so we're going to get underway. So Adrian, we're calling the meeting to order. It's 10:30. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes. Walker?
Here.
Snowden is excused. Bentley?
Here.
Byram?
Here. And Selden, I didn't think of her last name. Selden is excused.
Yep.
She would not take us to Hawaii with us. You have the minutes in the packet. Are there any comments or revisions to those minutes?
No.
Seeing none, they are approved as submitted. Thank you, Deborah. Member forum, do we have any speakers today?
Yes, we do. We have two members with us today. Members are welcome to speak during the designated member forum at Rossmore Walnut Creek board and committee meetings, either in person or via Zoom. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes and must clearly state their full name and Rossmore address before beginning. If speaking on behalf of another member, a signed consent form is required. To speak, members must submit a member form slip prior to the start of the forum. Instructions and slips are available at meeting entrances, the Rossmore Walnut Creek Board Office, and online. Please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded. By attending and participating, including during the open forum, attendees agree to and release Rossmore Walnut Creek from all liability for their voice and/or likeness being recorded and broadcast for any lawful purpose without compensation. And so,
Call your names and tell them you have 2 minutes.
And so can we have Mary Bennon? And Mary, can you please, if you can either sit or stand, but right here at that table so we can hear you through the mic.
Oh, yeah.
And you have 2 minutes.
All right. Let me pass these out, but I guess 2 per side, you can kind of share them.
Okay, go ahead and start with Byron.
Capital funds were
What is your first name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Bennon. I am the Vice President of the Rossmore Tennis Club. And capital funds were approved in 2023 for the renovation of courts 7 and 8, which was pushed to 2024, pushed to 2025, and we now see it's on a budget with a 5 priority and no money. The pictures that you have show examples of the large cracks that run the entire length and width of the 2 courts. The cracks are so deep that players can easily stub a toe and potentially have a devastating fall. This is Rossmore. The brownish red stain that shows on the top right, or depending on how you're holding it, is all over one of the courts. The dark diagonal lines are cracks where the surface is splitting up like a sourdough roll to reveal the surface underneath. In this case, the surface below is very rough and grabby. Asphalt, which is very different from the smooth surface otherwise, so players running across alternating smooth and rough can easily stumble if they hit one of the larger patches that can catch their shoes. Despite the poor conditions and the risks associated with playing on these 2 courts, they're used several hours a day when courts 1 to 6 are full. We've been told that if the conditions get any worse, GRF will padlock the courts to keep them from being used to avoid liability in the case of a serious injury. What kind of message does this send to the visitors and potential residents who view the tennis facility? It says that Rossmore doesn't value the upkeep of its facilities. Not planning for regular court repair and delaying repairs until the damage is expensive and costly is akin to a city deciding not to repair cracks when the roads are small and letting them turn into large potholes. That sends a message that this city is broke or poorly managed. Not repairing these badly damaged courts is
I'm sorry, Mary, sorry to cut you off, but your time is up.
Okay.
Your 2 minutes.
All right.
Next up, we have Emily Van Fleet.
Okay.
Can you please come up and state your name and your Rossmore address?
Sure. I'm Emily Van Fleet, 3761 Terra Granada. I'm president of the Rossmore Tennis Club, and I'm here to advocate for funding the rehab of courts 7 and 8 into the capital projects budget for 2026 and to allocate a couple $100,000 or whatever is needed for these courts to be rehabilitated and make those two courts as part of the Buckeye Tennis Complex, part of the well taken care of amenities that this community should offer and rely on. I will say that the tennis courts are a valuable amenity, and just as the board decided several years ago to spend $1 million on the table tennis facility that at that time only had 100 members, and recognized that it would be an amenity that would enhance the whole community and attract homeowners. It was done. The pickleball project, which is several $1 million and is going to be a great addition, a valuable asset, amenity to the community, was done with my understanding of not just current pickleball players, but attracting future. And I would ask that same consideration be given to the tennis courts. We're a community right now of over 200 players, but it will be more players, and the tennis courts should be maintained and enhanced. Thank you.
Thank you both for your comments. Moving on, chair's report. There is no chair's report this morning. Capital project update. And
Dang.
And I'm sorry, I muted myself on Zoom, so I'll start talking about it as I get this. Sharing, excellent, okay. So as you look at this month's capital projects update, you'll see that numbers have been adjusted based on the last meeting we had where the construction phase budget for pickleball was approved. So we had some other approvals actually at the 8/28 meeting. So for the pavement program, Martin and his team were in the process of scheduling that work to happen in the next couple of months. That was approved. The building finishes replacement program, what that funding was, which was approved at the 8/28 meeting, is for the event center flooring project, and that is being completed this week. The roof replacement program is on hold, and what we had planned to address this year was the skylight replacement at the fitness center. Excuse me, and the design of that. So we'll be kind of regrouping after pavement is done and having Martin try to get that moving again. For pickleball courts, this is the construction phase, and actually today is a kickoff meeting with the some of the design and construction team members. For the RWC admin relocation, I will defer to Jeff if you want to.
Continuing studies and evaluation.
For food and beverage, so the RFP closed about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and so we had 4 proposals received, and Synergy is doing a screening of them just to make sure that they meet all the requirements that were indicated for an operator. And then we're going to do interviews within the next couple of weeks, actually, to narrow it down to and hopefully bring something to the board, certainly by the end of October. Or maybe a special meeting.
I have a question about that. I mean,
Yes.
you're showing 500,000 this year. That seems unrealistic. Or am I misunderstanding it?
So what we did was in the model presented with the construction phase budget, we indicated the different expenditures that we were anticipating by the end of the year. So for food and beverage, part of the contract and bringing somebody on board is doing a refresh,
Yeah.
not remodel, but a refresh. And so we had an amount based on things that we know need to be potentially replaced of $750, and so that's kind of straddled over 2 years.
But a lot of it is right up front in relation to the kitchen and equipment that we'll need for transition. So there's probably advanced ordering and everything else that
Okay.
could hit that. So
It just seems like, given.
It
how
could
far
be
we are in the year,
aggressive.
it would be hard to spend that much money, but okay, I understand what you're saying.
It's an aggressive schedule, but we have a plan to spend it, so we have a plan to keep it going.
But it has not been approved yet.
Correct.
I mean, this is all a part of the negotiation. But
Exactly.
it was included in the cash flow
Exactly.
projection.
Yeah, which hopefully we should know by the end of October. The next two items have been kind of deferred. One of them is the lawn bowling green turf conversion. And essentially what was funded and we pushed into next year was funding basically a park plan study. And so what I do want to mention is sometimes we'll have people talk about, what about a shade structure for bocce? What about shade over lawn bowling? Or how about converting, more of the, switching out what the types of play are? So this study should include all of that, and it's very inclusive. There's lots of community engagement involved with that, so that's something to look forward to next year, should it be a priority, again, with the board.
Ted has a question.
Yeah, is when we do that, is that part of that plan? The city will have some say-so as far as ADA and some other things that around that structure that we have identified as possibility?
It really depends on what the plan is. It really depends on the plan. If you're doing a new design, it's gonna be designed to current code. But until we get in there, we don't know which areas will be impacted, affected, transformed. For the golf course lake liner replacement, we put that project on hold until the next year to start that one up again. For NetSuite implementation, we had two different contracts approved, and Peterson has some of them in communication, and then the Vermont systems. And so work is started right after that meeting to engage with those vendors and start building both programs. For the golf bridge replacement, the engineers are working on basically engineering and design, and the hope is to bring some ideas of what those prefab bridges are like for this group's consideration. And then the remainder of the projects were complete this year, so there's no movement on the rest of them.
Can we go back to pickleball for a second?
Absolutely.
So where are we on contract and timing, and is there
So-
gonna be like a groundbreaking ceremony, or I mean, what?
Yeah, we want to do that. And so today is kind of a preliminary meeting to kind of identify a few roles and responsibilities that will help define just a couple more things we need in the contract. And so we'll be able to execute that by the beginning of next week. But work is actively happening, communicating to get things lined up. So once we meet today, we'll finalize and get the contract ready for execution. Part of that is the timeline, to try to figure out when we want to target the actual groundbreaking. And do we want to do that when it's the facility proper versus the irrigation line relocation? But there's timing of a lot of things that we have to figure out first.
Will a pickleball paddle dig into the ground? Wouldn't it be fun?
A gold pickleball.
A gold one with like a razor thin edge. Could craft one for you.
All right. Any other questions on the capital project? If not, moving on, some project updates, enterprise risk management.
We are looking to bring that through next month through all of the committees.
Which is good timing, because as we talk about capital budget, I mean, we're now in that season, moving on from operating budget, I think. So that would be good timing. Food and beverage, Ann, you've already given an update, so any other questions on that? Transit.
We would like to bring a discussion and some proposals related to transit in the coming months to get some direction on how the committee and ultimately the board wants to move forward with that. So we'll schedule that either October or November for a presentation, so we're prepared going into 26.
On that, yeah, comment. I feel like we need to re-engage the community a fair bit on this to understand what people are really looking for, what is necessary, et cetera. Will part of your plan be associated with some sort of, I'm not sure how to make that outreach, but.
Yeah, so I think the initial step would be kind of talking with this committee about what some of those options are, refine it a bit before we go to the community, the current users, and then open to the community. So I think it would be a comprehensive process, but we need direction from this committee as a step one.
Fair.
Anything else on transit? On the RPM RWC relocation, I just want to voice a concern that make sure that we're looking at all potential options, whether it's Rockview, whether it's wherever, as we move down that road. Is that a yes? Thank you. Subcommittee updates, capital projects priority matrix. Ted and Adrian. Oh, okay.
So, oh yeah, so I put the packet there, and just so you know, I attached to it what we use now, which has the priority structure from,
Sorry, this.
it has your matrix that the subcommittee worked on, and it has the staff report that shows the priorities that we used in the different sheets. No, at the back, on the back of your packet.
This one.
Yeah. It's behind that triangle that's in your hand.
So it's what was used.
Look in
when
your
it-
left hand, Ted, and look under the triangle.
It's what was used for the 2025.
Yeah.
What was used for the 2025 capital budget.
It's here.
And yeah, can you put that up on the?
Yeah, it's. The triangle, yeah.
So we did a little bit of thinking about this, Ted and I, and certainly not Googling around. And there's clearly a fairly sort of best practices way of doing this kind of work. A lot of people have had to deal with this kind of issue in the past. And there's a number of ways that have been identified as appropriate ways of trying to make these sorts of decisions. One of them is the importance pyramid that we talked about here that we show. That says what's, that you can kind of quickly rate something. Another one is a version of, there's a couple of versions of this, but one's called the Eisenhower matrix, and it's also this must have, should have, could have, won't have kind of an approach, where you have something on the top left corner is must have, it's very clear. If it's in the orange, then it's not. And then you've got the should have, could have kind of things where it's often difficult to do. And
Are you beholden to Moscow?
well, yes.
Right.
We're trying to be nice to them. So anyway, the problem with both of these is that you end up with a lot of projects in these two could have, should have, you're not quite clear. It's hard to distinguish why this one is better than that one. The ones that are really important, real obvious. The ones that are not important, real obvious. But it's these ones in the middle. And that's where some sort of weighted scoring approach helps. And I know that there was, apparently we tried this some time ago and it didn't really work out. But personally, I'm a little like, well, this is the way I go about it. I mean, that's sort of my analytical approach. But, and much of it is you go through this and it makes you think clearly about, oh, well, what's the financial benefit? Oh, what's the resource feasibility? It makes you think about the elements involved in making the decision, even if you don't use the numbers. But it makes you think about the different aspects of it, rather than just think about this project as a whole. So that's why I would advocate that we try and do something like
Ted, you,
Well, I remember going through the numbering system piece, which was really, I think for me, had a lot of personal bias on it. And I think it's really hard when you do that with a whole group, everybody on the board putting a number in and then we total it all up. And you're gonna have, I'm not sure that got us to where we wanted to be. Because when we got all done with that, we still had a discussion about it and then everything moved around again to get it. And the discussion piece turned out to be more important as to finding out where we should be at with the project than the numbering system. And that's what I came up from that. It was a lot of time and effort. People had to really think about, okay, do all this stuff because there was a lot of projects we were evaluating. But then when it was all done, it was the discussion that really created the order. So I think that although it'll make a lot of people aware of, maybe make you think more and make you more aware of what is going on, I really think the discussion piece is the one that really brought it up. And I think if we can find something in the discussion piece, such as, one of these, the pyramid piece of it, or the Moscow piece, we would get us to the end result faster of what we really need for here.
well, and could I say, I love the pyramid and I'm not gonna call it Moscow. I'm just not gonna do that, but the MSCW. And you know what, the weighted average, it was a nightmare, Adrian, and when you brought it up, I really just turned my stomach because it did not work. And so what happened for the last 2 years then, the staff actually identified the priority and they could identify the MSCW. Then the discussion point was at the planning committee, is that the right priority? Is that the right Moscow? And then making a recommendation to the board was based on staff recommendations and planning committee recommendations, given all of these considerations. I like the thought-provoking descriptions here, and that we should have that available to everybody. But to think of staff going through a weighted average thing, and then the planning committee doing a weighted average thing, and then the board doing a weighted average thing, it's, in my opinion, it's just cumbersome. And as Ted said, this was done at the board meeting, and then we went, no, that's not what we want, and then we overrode it, so it was not a good exercise. But I don't like the pink on safety, but I like this. I like this priority and must have, should have.
Well, Rossmore is sort of female oriented, and so therefore we.
Thank you,
Comes to the
Adrian.
top. Okay, all right. I'll go with you.
So anyway,
How does staff feel about?
If we can kind of tag on to what you said, the trouble with the past process in doing the weighted scoring, there was 2 different weighted factors that went into it. And then there was an elaborate kind of process that ended up with a ranking. And board members were given a list of projects with descriptions and so forth, and then asked to prioritize those based on those. Well, one of the main things that the board needs to do or should consider is that that's not really the job of the board in terms of knowing, is something a regulatory, a safety issue, something to prolong the life of the asset, to be able to properly rank where these things go. That's really what you want to use your staff and your hired consultants to do, and then bring it back to you in literally this form where it gives what is the priority based on these criteria. I mean, you can certainly adopt these criteria, but then we would come back to you and say the priority, this is a priority 2, it meets these conditions, here's why it's being recommended, kind of the cost implication. We know that this project is related to this project, so it should go first. Maybe it's not scored higher, but it should go first because of whatever conditions. There's so many factors that doing a collective scoring kind of ignores. And I can tell you that there's different personalities that end up on committees and boards that we have extreme interest and thought processes on really how that priority looks. And that's why it would end up getting kind of, well, let's move this one here and this one. So I like the idea of having something like either of these tools as safety is our top priority. Long-term structural protection, we want to protect our assets. That's the next. So using that in terms of how we develop our list is important and important for the committee and the board to look at. But I would kind of caution about having the committees or the boards actually rank and score projects.
Jeff, how do you feel about the must have, could have, should have, would have? I mean, it's kind of a two-pronged priority, if you will. 1 plus M, 1 plus S, whatever. I think that's helpful.
It's all information that the committee and the board can use in terms of doing priorities. The other thing it would be.
And we can change them, by the way.
Yeah,
Right,
I mean, absolutely.
Yes, yeah.
The other thing you might want to consider is if you look at what is in our 10-year projection, our list of projects that we know kind of this year, next year, and really is very little kind of wiggle room within that in terms of what is going to be the priority to maintain.
Given the current MTF level.
Right. I mean, I'm gonna give you a little demonstration of some of the projects that are identified in the wish list and stuff, and how those may get slotted. And certainly over time, this could play into that. How you do a long-term prioritization of these projects, what you do first. And I do like in here, I think you have over 500,000 as kind of your threshold. That's probably pretty key to keep this at a higher level so you don't preempt ongoing maintenance type stuff.
500,000 where?
Like you would do the process for over
That you would
500.
go
Yeah,
through,
That this is applied to projects over 500,000.
Yeah.
So if you're doing your rehab type stuff, your pool plastering isn't going to get preempted because you want to do something else.
I'm not following the 500,000.
I was just put in a number as a sort of a threshold to say when you go into a full-blown analysis, as opposed to a more like, okay, yeah.
Routine.
I understand that, but I think 500,000 is too high.
Well, I put a number in there just to say there needs to be a threshold.
It was Jeff conversation.
I'd be fine with 490.
Well, then I'm sold. No, when you think about the projects like the tennis courts, I mean, that's what, $350,000, $400,000 that needs to go through this process. So.
I want to say, I do like the information that is being requested, and I know this group, as it's changed, we've kind of worked collaboratively to figure out what is the content you want. So I even think some of the content we put in descriptions moving forward, or the information we bring back should satisfy this. And one of the things that we weren't really good about reporting on was the ongoing maintenance of things, right? And usually we'll do that like in the staff report at some point. But I think in the evaluation component, there's a certain point where like until you know sometimes what you're building, you won't know the true, impact to maintenance. But I do like a lot of the questions that are in here, and I think we can, evolve what we have certainly to become more robust in the information that's being presented for you.
Ted?
You were gonna say something, you go ahead and I'll do it.
Okay, well, so, I mean, this to me is a good template for the committee, for the board to understand, and for members to understand.
I would
This
just
is
say
what-
whatever you decide on, it would still be better to say one, must-haves, like just put a number so it's easy in
Yes.
charts.
Yeah, rather than.
If I could just
The
request that,
pink ones are this and
Yeah.
then, yeah, we
little
need
color
1, 2, 3,
coding, yeah,
1, 2,
numbers
3,
would be
4,
easy,
5,
yeah.
yeah. Ted.
So I kind of on the same line you're doing. I agree with Jeff and Ann that I think that this is invaluable to get this back because this is all your research on what is being done. But I think that the board, when we're looking at this and where we could, if we wanted to look at something and maybe change the priority on it, I think that we need something super easy for this and future boards to look at. It's not just what we're gonna be looking at, but you're gone next year, and I'm gone in 2 years. And so we're gonna have to think about future boards coming on. When
Yes.
We're looking at what the staff has done and then how they have to look at it to be able to prioritize. So I think that both of them are important,
Mhm.
but for different reasons,
Yes,
you know.
but they lead into each other.
Yes,
And
they
this
do.
is a
And-
part of the whole process.
Yes.
You know, that we'll talk
I agree.
about.
I think we should figure a way to be able to incorporate this. Maybe if you want, we can get rid of the pink. I'm not locked into
I'm
that
kidding,
color.
I'm kidding.
But I'm just saying that I think that this gives people a good decision-making process
Mhm.
when they're looking at this to try and figure out, they should probably go hand in hand when we're going over these sheets, making
And
those
staff.
decisions.
Or staff. And any descriptions here that don't seem to work well for anybody? I tend to think they're really good.
just replace it.
Seeing none. So we're going to talk about capital projects process next. To me, this is a part of that process that we're trying to get documented. I don't know what form that takes. I don't think it's a policy thing.
It's not policy.
It's a practice. It can be a part of the planning committee's best practices, I guess. I don't know, Jeff, I'm looking for guidance on where that.
Well, I know
part
when we
came.
started I don't think the first time we talked about how we prioritize was at the board meeting. I'll have to look at like the staff reports. I pulled the one that was in the board packet. But at some point, we talked about the 1, 2, 3, 4. And so what I can do is, if the committee wants to reference this, these could easily be the 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to send me whatever your original format was, because I think I had a PDF, I'm happy to edit it kind of as a
Mhm.
reference tool.
Well,
So we can start talking about, we think that needs to be in the one bucket.
although I was envisioning, that the pyramid is 1 through 5.
Yeah.
So versus
And then-
Moscow,
Mhm.
And then tagging with the
Yeah.
MS.
Because like,
you're killing me, Smalls.
I am not going Moscow. I am
Yeah.
not going there.
but I agree with Adrian that you're gonna have, should have, and the could have, so it's probably gonna be a hard decision to make. I think the pyramid makes it easier to make that decision on
Because
where it
it's
should
a-
go.
Well, it's too, yeah.
You could probably load
Yeah, that's right.
everything in,
It's
so-
basically saying
All of it.
that, okay, this is a could have, both of these are could haves, but this involves safety.
Right.
Okay, so that's got
That's
more
the must-have,
priority
yeah.
than one that's just an aesthetic, even though it is something we could have. So
Or
it
like-
gives you another access to make decisions on. I would like to advocate, however, for the staff to actually cover these 8 things. Okay, because in the staff
Trying.
report, to say why this is a strategic alignment. What's the risk assessment of this project? Those are things those are questions that need to be answered as part of doing it.
And I don't know
In the
if-
staff
Yeah,
report.
Yeah, and I think Ann is saying that you would
Yeah.
accommodate that.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 MSC, so,
A, B, C, D.
Mm,
okay, yeah,
Yeah, 1A.
yes.
Okay, anyway, I'll send you this from the Word doc version of this.
Alrighty. A work in progress.
All right, thanks, guys. That's
You're gonna have to check my numbers, because I'm sure I'll kind of get it wrong.
In terms of the project process or proposed process that you're starting to go into, I think it's just a practice of the planning committee that you would utilize in terms of considering and responding to various project proposals. I don't know that it's a formal policy or part of your charter. It just would be kind of your standard practice.
Right. But it'd be good if we sort of had it as a document to say, this is what we do.
Yeah.
You can, coming along afterwards, we'd say, oh, okay, I get it.
Yes.
Or,
And something that could go in the newcomer's guide or the, all around Rossmore, that this is the capital projects process and this is blah, blah, blah. Yes.
and we're no longer rushing.
The polls appreciate that. So shall we talk about capital projects
Yeah. let me pull that
process?
one up.
So Janet and Ann and I met a couple of times, and I created this really crude flow chart because my brain only works in an Excel spreadsheet. So if we could walk through it, and maybe Ann is
I'm
gonna.
trying to,
Okay.
my mouse is not.
And again, think about the overview of this, again, from the standpoint so that membership understands the process that we go through, planning committee understands, new board members, all board members understand the process of how capital projects come to be and how they move through the process. So starting with the first one, ideas from members and staff. Ideas are solicited year-round from members via email to rwcboard@rossmore.com, which we allow currently, we don't actively
Term
recruit.
solicit,
Yes,
if we can replace that with, or accepted or considered. I'm not sure about solicited.
accepted, okay. Oh, yeah, or accepted, yeah. I don't have a pen, please.
We're taking them.
Okay, go.
Different.
You got it?
And then they are reviewed quarterly by the GM and president to determine the next step. Sometimes ideas don't have wings, so to speak. But projects, and then moving to the right, projects identified as a top priority move forward for planning committee and board approval of concept only. And again, we're talking the big projects, but it applies to smaller projects too. But the concept of, okay, let's consider whether, and I'll use lawn bowling as an example. That's something that has been floating out there. The concept is floating out there, but not a lot of specifics. So the concepts go to, if they're approved by the planning committee and board, they move to the capital projects wish list for future consideration. So think again of lawn bowling. Yeah, okay, we want to consider that, but it's sitting out there as a wish list, as a potential project. The far right then is stop. Those ideas which are deemed not appropriate or doable are communicated to the originator. We owe that communication back. So then moving down, project selection. As a part of the capital budget process, concepts are written by staff to provide an overview and rough cost estimates for projects under consideration. And that's what this document is that we just referenced. And then the next step for board approved projects, staff develops conceptual design packages, including more precise cost estimates, which are updated on the 5-year capital spending plan. And then further to the right, projects that are not approved by the board return to the capital projects wish list for future consideration. So a lot of this is there are off ramps along the way because the planning committee and board and finance committee need to approve things as we move along and things can exit the freeway, if you will. So the next step down is conceptual design packages. For large projects, funds may be needed to develop a realistic plan and cost. Conceptual design funding requires board approval before the project moves forward. So that, think of, well, let's talk about lawn bowling again. We've said we need to spend money to know what we're talking about, even just to spend that, what do you call it, Ann? You call it scoping or?
Yeah, like project scoping.
Project scoping requires board, finance board and planning committee approval before it moves forward. So moving to the right, the planning and finance committees review and determine if a recommendation is appropriate to the board for consideration. With approval, staff moves forward to develop final design packages with updated cost estimates, which are communicated to stakeholders for feedback and final regulatory approvals if necessary. And then if it's not approved, it goes back to the wish list or it disappears. So then the next step is approved project funding. So again, we've had an off-ramp, by the way, that conceptual design step. Approved project funding, the 5-year capital spending plan report is updated monthly to provide the planning and finance committees with the status of approved projects. When a project is fully developed with plans and cost estimates, it is submitted to the planning and finance committees for their recommendation to the board for consideration of funding. So if approved, then funded projects are monitored in the 5-year spending plan report and reviewed with the planning and finance committees on a monthly basis. Board approval and competitive bids are required for contracts which will be executed by the general manager. Any additional funding needed for a project must go through the process again for board approval. So if there's a change order or something that takes us over budget, it's got to go back through planning, finance, and board approval. And then project completion. And by the way, up to this point, it's what we do, really.
Yeah.
Other than accepting a lot of ideas or soliciting a lot of ideas. But it's just documenting the process that we go through. And then project completion, the last step, staff executes project at completion and provides monthly updates on its status at the planning committee meetings. The 5-year capital spending plan report is updated for actual and projected project costs. It's almost redundant, but yes, Susan.
In terms of change orders, if they're within the overall contingency, do they have to go back for approval?
No,
Okay.
no, it's just in terms of total project cost that
Okay.
it goes over. Good
Thank you.
question. Thoughts, yeah.
This seems perfectly reasonable, and like you say, it's pretty much what we do, but it doesn't address one of the aspects that shows up, or even showed up here today. We're talking about maintenance, capital-oriented maintenance, and how does that fit?
So
Could I ask a question?
So, and we need to rework that first block because staff makes a lot of those recommendations or members. But that member input goes into that first block.
And so, a maintenance type of a project would also fall into this.
If it's capital.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would still fit into this.
Absolutely.
Still goes to the same
A
approval.
lot of what would happen in that first box there is once we receive a recommendation or a proposal, is we would evaluate it and discuss it in terms of what our existing plans are. I mean, if it's a maintenance type item, we may already have it in the plans. It may already be part of, or we might identify it as something that could be attached to something else. And so that's what happens right now, kind of behind the scenes. I mean, Ann and I get stuff all the time from clubs, residents, staff that says, hey, how about this? And we can look at it and go, okay, well, that really actually would go well with this. So we can kind of do that. Janet's brought up a lot with dollar, right? So we're looking at that in terms of, well, where do we have little resources so we can do kind of pockets of this and that? So there's a lot of just ongoing analysis that happens within kind of that first block. Then we can really guide where it needs to go from there. So as part of the report out from that would be, you can put this towards your long term, you can put it towards maintenance, you can put it towards tie it to this project. It can go quite a few different directions.
But maybe we need to add something rather than just sending an email to RWC board or through members forum or, other avenues that people have to contribute. And
Can I jump in?
That's that. Yes, Leanne.
Yeah, I think given what Jeff just said about things behind the scenes impacting the direction, it would be great to have like a flow chart with yes/no decision points to show the records coming in or what staff is considering, and then also to show the flow. Like if you reach a point where it's not approved, where does it go back to? You know, where what's the flow, and you know, how do they go through it? And then also we designed a form years ago. Maybe it's time to look at that again. It's not applicable now, but part of it might be. So try that.
I'm not familiar with that form, but
Is it the one, Leanne, that you did when you were chair of this committee?
Yeah, I think Leanne and I did
I
something.
was
A while
way
back.
back when.
no, Leanne, you're absolutely right. And there should be, some people might call it a funnel list of things that the president and GM have considered and what was its dispensation. What's the right word? Maybe. Yeah, absolutely.
And that would be a public document?
Sure, yeah, on the website or wherever. MyRossmore.com.
Alan and my Rossmore.
You're right.
This needs refinement and my vision is, Anne, are you volunteering for that? I'm sorry?
We'll refine it for you.
Okay, thank you. But to have something that's visually compelling, I keep thinking of I-680, the freeway. You know, here's an exit ramp, here's the HOV lane, you know. At any rate, something that is easily digestible. Again, that could be on myrossmore.com, but also in all around Rossmore, et cetera. Just so that all members understand this process.
As we were going through this, a question occurred to me, which is, we have a certain amount of infrastructure here. It requires maintenance on a regular basis. Should, in our capital budget, we just sort of throw everything together? But should we be sort of thinking about the idea that, okay, we have $90 million worth of stuff. We're going to be spending 5% of that value, or I don't know what the number is, but some number. And that's sort of almost reserved for maintenance.
We kind of do that in the presentation that we'll have for you, and we classify it as capital maintenance, rehab, and replacement, and it's an average of about $1.5 million escalated up a year. We have category for other major projects that are less than $1 million. Those are your pool plasters, your roofing, your all of that, which we do have a schedule for, believe it or not. And so we kind of escalate that over time, but it's a pretty consistent million-ish.
It's almost the reserve study for RWC properties.
Very similar, right. And then we have our machinery and equipment, which is again, pretty darn consistent, 750. Planning wise, if we look out over the 10 years, we keep those reserves kind of going because we don't want to put everything into a project and then go, oh, you know, we forgot we got to do the pool plaster.
Exactly. I realize you're doing that. I'm just wondering, it sounds like actually there is, in effect, a known percentage that we really have to sort of devote towards this. And that should be a general understanding.
And it really, it's backed up by a document where we know the life of our pools, we know the life of our boilers, of our, our street maintenance.
It would be good for the planning committee to not necessarily digest that document.
You want that spreadsheet again?
I think it's good to just display, because there's a lot of work that goes into that, and it's constantly updated by John, Rafe, and Martin.
It's mostly Martin.
Yeah, because it's kind of hidden. It's not hidden, but it's a lump sum that we don't.
It's a working tool that we kind of utilize as we.
And it gives you just sort of it would give the members of the board and me sort of, oh yeah, I know I've almost got to spend that amount of money and understand sort of where it's going.
That was just like the housing report.
Yeah.
Some of this is tied in with policy committee and looking at dollar thresholds for capital. I don't know if we need to wait for that in order to refine and adopt this. I think it would be,
Know that that would influence that much,
okay.
to be honest.
So next steps, I guess, is to refine, make it pretty and come back next
Yeah.
month?
Yeah, as long as we can meet in between them,
Okay,
just to make sure it's the right,
okay, awesome.
that I didn't edit, delete anything.
I trust your editing.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments on this? No, where are we? Recommendation of the Finance Committee about MTF. We do a weighted average discussion on this.
I have wait.
Oh, you
How
have
much
to
do you weigh?
Yeah, Give me just a minute.
do 2 minute. He needs an adapter.
Oh.
Recap me.
Ann, are you here for purpose?
Yep, new business.
Nope.
Do you want her to
Oh,
go
the
while?
monument, yes. I
Want
read
her
that
to
with
go while
great
Jeff is,
interest, yes. Yeah.
Actually, this morning we were researching, you remember the old globe that used to be out?
Yes, I
Love
do.
that thing.
So Sam asked the question, when did the new sign go in? I'm like, well, when did the old globe go out? So we're like going through the bound volumes, and it turns out it was gonna cost $175 to refurbish the globe, and it was missing a continent. We're not sure which one. And so they decided, that's it, we're just gonna, the city said, nope, we're taking it out.
Oh my God.
And there was
The globe was
there was
large.
some association of residents in here where they said, if you can come up with a plan, then we'll find a way to keep it. They didn't come up with a plan. Then they got all mad afterwards and the city's like, we gave you the option and you didn't save it.
That was at least 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1994.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Okay, you can all see this real easy, right? Okay, so this is a 10-year spending plan. Now, I have taken lots of liberties with this that are things that have not been approved, but this is for kind of illustrative purposes in relation to the discussion about the membership transfer fee. So just to orient everybody, what we're looking at is a 2025 year-to-date. You've seen this before. This is based on what we presented recently in terms of the pickleball project and how we can fund that and everything else that has been approved for this current year. And then carrying that into 2026 in terms of kind of what may carry over, although a lot of the items in 2026 have not been approved. And then it carries forth for a 10-year spending plan. As we just discussed with, based on Adrian's comment, you will see that we have a category for capital maintenance, rehab, and replacement. That's stuff like your paving, your building finishes, your roofing replacement, stuff like that. I put in basically the $1.5 million and then escalated that 5% on through the 10-year plan. Has not been approved, it's just for discussion. Our capital machinery and equipment, again, we spend about $750, $730 a year. That is in there, escalated 5%. We have the pickleball facility that's been approved. The RWC admin relocation, I'm going to talk about that project kind of in a bubble a little bit here in just a minute, but the funding from that comes from the escrow default reserve down below. Lawn bowling, golf course, lake liner are projects that are somewhat in the works. They haven't been, fully funded or approved, but they're out there for future consideration. And then we have this other major projects that are less than $1 million. Things that come up throughout the year that we know that we have to plan on. You see the list, the current list and the funding, and then we put out starting in 2027, $1 million and escalate that through. So We're trying to capture all of the planned, known, routine type stuff within this. As we work down, we put into here the RWC facility and property maintenance. And I started it off, that might be a little high, but I put in 850 for 2026 and then escalate that by 5% a year. And we'll discuss a little bit more in detail and also policy-wise what classifies as the facility property maintenance under capital. Along with that, down below here in pink, we have the transfer of the trust maintenance expense operating fund. And the balance of that was 485, so we dropped that in as revenue to transfer that over. So you will see if we keep that kind of spending plan and we have our 14,000 next year, keeping the 400 home sales consistent, transfer fees consistent, that our available cash, this still keeps the retention at 4 million. There's discussion about increasing that ongoing. If we keep it at 14,000, we fairly quickly drop our available cash to below the target of 2 million and start to actually go upside down in 2027. So then the question remains, what do we do with that? If we look at what we proposed last time of taking that to 18.
Jeff, before you do that, the list there on the left is the wish list that has not been.
I'm gonna get into that in just a second. So without even talking about the wish list, you saw that we start to go upside down in fairly short order. So if we change that to the 18, you can see that we maintain the 2 million and we start to build fairly quickly towards 2030, 2035, we have 11 million, but throughout the time, we're maintaining over 2 million by going up to 18. And that doesn't address then, so that addresses all of the ongoing routine maintenance, the machinery and equipment, the facility property maintenance, the capital projects under 1 million, it addresses those. But what about this list over here to the side? When we did the facilities master plan, there was a whole laundry list of potential projects that were put into a wish list or kind of beyond the 10-year period. And those included the dollar exterior accessibility. So this is the back patio and the ramps in the back that go into the clubhouse. There's the hillside pool building replacement. This is the locker rooms up at Hillside. This new MOD office building and site improvements. Now, this was the #1 project that was identified in the facilities master plan in terms of major projects, and it was talked about for 26-27 timeframe. And the estimate in 2022 dollars was $13,200,000. This is a project right now under discussion with the board in terms of, what are the options, what are the relocation? It's tied in with the sale of the medical center, and it would also be tied into using some of our debt capacity. So another major assumption that I've done is instead of reducing our debt service down here, I kept it steady at 2 million, which is pretty consistent with what our current payment is. Because if we redo our existing loans and we use some of our debt capacity along with the sale of the medical center, that would address that project. So kind of keeping that separate within this plan, but know that the debt capacity is kept steady within here. So that's a major assumption I made. So going through these again, dollar seismic system elevator finishes in 2022 dollars, 8 million. Now, there's a whole bunch of ways we can look at that project. You can do significant improvements over time where you're spending a couple 100,000, 500,000 instead of doing one major tear down remodel at 8 million. Emergency access road. This was related to the road up at
Great Eagle.
Great Eagle, thank you. That is a emergency only going through Sino property. It really is reliant on the property owner, but if there was an opportunity to do that, there's that in there. Dollar amphitheater, this didn't get a whole lot of traction at the time, so it may or may not have interest. It's one of my favorite projects, but that's beside the point.
Jeff, I thought we had rejected that off the wish list.
There's a lot of these projects that were in the report that I just put in here, but it was not a high value project.
Okay, yeah.
The lawn bowling shade structure at $500,000, this is one where it's kind of grown a little bit and can be incorporated into, if we do the whole park concept up at Hillside, maybe it gets incorporated into that. Hillside West Wing Mat House, again, $9 million in 2022. What do we do with that? Gateway building, this may get incorporated into the MOD office project and likely would become part of that and also be part of this debt service down here that we already addressed. Same with Peacock Plaza project. Water reclamation is one that we were studying for quite a while, and at the time it was put into the master plan, but is no longer on the board, so that could be taken off. Nobody really liked the playground, so that was listed, but is not really in the plan. Walking paths were a product of the pandemic and was really a high value at the time, but has not resurfaced since. So I don't know that there's still interest in that overall project. So taking those comments into consideration, if you just wanted to move some of these in and just drop them in to see what happens, I mean, you could do, say, the dollar patio ramp. Maybe you do that in 27 and it's right, hillside pool building replacement, that could be a ways out. It's not an urgency, maybe you do some upkeep, but that might be further out. And it's by that time, $1.6 million. Again, the new MOD, we're gonna talk about that separate. Dollar is something, again, I think you probably wanna consider as chunks. Commit to a rehab plan that has chunks. So maybe you do, say, 500,000 every so many years, right? That's 5 million.
It's probably more like it.
That would make Jen happy.
Over 2 years.
You know, I'm just dropping these in here randomly. The shade structure, if we do that as part of that project. Hillside, that's probably gonna be quite a ways down, right? I think that, because that would be a major one. So maybe you're looking towards the end and you split that over. So if you do stuff like that, you're addressing a lot of those projects and you go to 8 million. You see, you're still maintaining your fund balance moving forward. You're able to do a lot of these significant projects that are identified. Now you're breaking up dollar, you'd still probably need to do something significant. But you can see that there is capacity within your fund balance to take on those if you're going to 18 and you continue the 500 a year. But without that, you start to go upside down. If you wanted to look at is that at 16, you can see you quickly in 3 years out, you're down to 382.
What if you did 16 in 26 and 18 in 27? A two-step process. It's more like a waltz rather than a tango.
But why would you want to do that? It has nothing to do with the people here. It has to do with what we have to take care of in the future.
Bear with me, let's see what it looks like first.
So if you go to 16, let's say I did 18.5. So you're down to 1,600,000, 1,500,000.
Doesn't quite.
Again, that is, there is, as we go through the Moscow process where we place these, is gonna look different. This was just purely an exercise to demonstrate.
So the reason I bring that up is that it's a shock to have such an increase, and what we don't want to do in a limp, weak real estate market is to set up more obstacles to selling properties. That's the reason I bring it up. On the flip side, we gave up $700,000 in rental income in 2021 from the John Muir Medical Center. We never accommodated for that loss in revenue. Now we've moved the maintenance, what are we calling it?
RWC facility maintenance.
Okay, yeah, 800,000, 850 a year. So that's $1.5 million. We should make up for at least that in what we're talking about.
Definitely that.
Yeah. And so moving it, what's the revenue going from 14 to 16? I don't know what can you slide over so we see which line item is the revenue generated? No, the other way, sorry. So transfer fee revenue going from 5.4 to 6.4, going to 16, and then the 7.2 with 18. So that's $2 million. And that's making up for the past.
In talking to kind of the heads of two of the real estate companies, the transfer fee is not the determining factor according to what they said. They're more vocal, especially once they've committed to Rossmore. They're interested in Rossmore. They've done their $100 facility tour. It's more concern over what is the coupon and what is that doing, rising. But this is kind of seen as part of the closing process. Now that you're paying cash and you're talking about, some of the co-ops, you could have a larger factor, but in terms of waiting, and then also the selling factor is the fact that we have good facilities and they're competitive.
And you're gonna have great Instagrams.
Yeah.
TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's in a way that makes it difficult to understand what's going to happen going forward is the existing debt service, the 2 million. I mean, that number is approximately right, but I've done some sort of order of magnitude math on switching out 1220 for 1200, et cetera. And maybe we're down 16 million, maybe 20 million that we'd have to finance. So 2 million's probably in the ballpark, but it really depends on what we're ending up with, you know, what the interest rate is at that time and who's going
What the sale.
the loan, et cetera, yeah.
1,200 is.
Yeah, I mean, so it could easily fluctuate by $200,000 one way or the other, quite frankly. And that makes a significant difference going forward, obviously. So in some ways, it's difficult to sort of say what we should move with MTF for until we know that number. Although
Even without that.
I mean, well, we know we need to move it up.
We're paying 2 million right now.
No, we know we need to cover that.
Yeah.
But
It could be more.
it could be, yeah.
I would tell you, there is no shortage of projects or project ideas. I mean, you heard one today, dropping here. There will always be a shortfall, no matter how much we raise it to, because there's always going to be interest.
Well, and our facilities, many of them are 60 years old.
Hillside, Dollar, this complex, it's,
I could support going to 18 on April 1st of 2026. Get over the sluggish first quarter and giving enough time for realtors to. On April Fool's Day, yes. We could make it the 2nd if you want to Moscow it.
I would recommend doing that as opposed to 16, 18, because then you're fighting the significant increase twice. If you wanted to just wait and alert community and then do 1 to 18 at one point.
Comments?
On 18, I like that number. And you're talking about April 1st would be the day that we would change it at that time.
You need some time to go through the process too, right? I mean, it needs for 20 days. Yeah. Adrian, what do you?
Well, I'm, and we absolutely have to take it to 16, no question about that, to cover the stuff that we moved in capital costs. The question is running the 2,000, it's about that. And I mean, I kind of agree with your idea that it's doing it once rather than twice, it's probably the right thing to do.
And given that we covered both the maintenance and the loss of rental income.
Yeah.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
We're just getting back to where we should be.
Yeah. But we are going to have to revisit this question after we understand what happens with the manual sales.
Absolutely. And every year, actually.
Well, not every year thereafter, but I mean,
It's definitely
but that
a
may have a
process.
significant impact, positively or negatively.
I'd like to see us increase the reserve too. That's the discussion for a later time. So do we need a motion?
We're looking for a recommendation to finance for their consideration.
Anybody want to venture a motion? Ted?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the Finance Committee to increase the MTF to 18,000
On April 1st,
on
2026.
on April 1st, 2026.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes. Walker,
Yes?
Bentley,
Yes.
Byram,
Yes.
the vote's unanimous.
We have more things to talk about because Ann Peterson is here and she's gonna save us some money. We thought we were gonna spend, the marketing task force, by the way, had recommended a redo of the monument. But Ann's gonna tell us why that's not a no-go.
Okay. There we go. So the marketing task force with the name change identified really that we only had one big expense when it comes to
moving the name from Rossmore to Rossmore Walnut Creek, and that's the monument sign. This is the one that sits at the intersection of Springs Valley and Rossmore Parkway as you're coming into Rossmore. So what we did as staff is we went and requested multiple bids from sign companies in two areas. One, if you were to completely demolish this and put in a new fabricated monument sign. And the second was if we just refurbished it, which means adding the words Walnut Creek, power washing it, repainting it. So we got multiple bids back on both of those projects. And interestingly enough, Golden Gate Sign, which was one of the folks that submitted a bid, asked us to go back to the city and take a harder look at what their ordinances are with regards to signs. This is actually a directional sign because of the arrow. And as a result, the city of Walnut Creek probably will not permit us to pull this out and put a new monument sign in, because this is actually what they want all the signs to look like that are directional. So you will have a lovely stainless steel green sign with white letters as our new marker coming in.
But that's almost our green.
It is pretty close to our green, yes. So you would get that. You could still have, we could get a company to do a design. We could go to Walnut Creek, explain that if we were to keep the same proportions, they might consider letting us swap out a monument. But it's a high cost to do that. It's almost $32,000 without permits. And it's gonna get quite a bit more because you're gonna have to go through engineering and all of that. One of the bids is as high as $60,000 for a new fabricated sign outside the gate. Staff doesn't think that's a good amount of money to spend just on a sign. So our suggestion is to really look at refurbishing the current sign that's out there. So this would involve, with the lowest bid, what they would do is they would take that whole top portion, the green portion at the top with the Rossmore on it, they would take it off. They would give us a temporary sign there so people still know this is Rossmore. And they would repaint and add the lettering for Walnut Creek as part of it. It would be power washed. They would also repaint the inset logo, and everything would be to our colors. Right now, what you're seeing on the screen is not, but we would give them the brand color so that everything is color matched, and we actually have our brand color as part of this. Excuse me. So if we went with this proposal, you're looking at $12,670 is what all of the refurbished project work would cost. Permits are probably approximately $2,000. We still have to go through the permitting process for this, especially because of the temporary sign. And then a contingency at 10%, so you're looking at $15,937. And again, this is the big question that's on the table first, is do we feel as if we need, for branding purposes, to have Walnut Creek on the sign outside? And if so, do we feel it's worth almost $16,000 to do? So that's question number one, and then question number two is, does this bid work for you?
I think most people would be upset at the idea of spending $50,000 to put Walnut Creek underneath Rossmore. Gains us anything. I mean, power washing it, make it look nicer, yeah, sure. But putting Walnut Creek there, I don't think it adds anything.
But what do you think, if you're saying power washing it, repaint it, and doing all that stuff, we're almost doing the whole job anyway. What do we gain by not putting Walnut Creek on it? Do we save like $200 or $500?
You're actually looking at probably, the lettering itself is close to about $3,500.
Yeah.
Project.
Yeah, I'm saying don't bother replacing the top part and all the rest of it, just.
John LeRay's team 3 or 4 years ago did go out and power wash it and touched up the paint. One of the things he talked about is they can touch up the paint on the logo, but that top portion is very difficult to do because of the way that the letters are inset. And the fact that if you just sort of temporarily do it, then there's like weathering on the bottom that then becomes compromised. So they don't really touch the top part. If we were to keep that in-house, you're really talking about just power washing and touching up the logo.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about doing. That's sort of routine maintenance, that's fine, but spending 15 grand on, I mean, Walnut Creek, I mean, people.
So I'll counterpoint you, Adrian, in that from a marketing standpoint, we need to be absolutely consistent in every time that we present Rossmore Walnut Creek on the website, on the letterhead, on the signage, everywhere. And so we're known as Rossmore Walnut Creek. A lot of people driving by don't even know that we're in Walnut Creek. And so, and the colors, I hate the colors in that sign right now. It looks lousy. My only concern is that that corner has become so busy now with Savers and the traffic and the pedestrians. I think the sign is low enough right now. If we went with something bigger, I think that would be a huge problem. But I would support this big time, as that is the signature monument saying who we are.
Besides the marketing task force, I think that I like the idea of the name Rossmore Walnut Creek being consistent all the way through. But that being said, this is the people's first impression of when they come into Rossmore. And I think that we need a sign that represents Rossmore when you walk in. You know, when you drive in around that corner, you might catch it, you might not, but if you do, it can give you, if the sign is not done right, if it's not looking modern, you're not gonna feel like you're going into the community that we want to have of a modern community and the amenities up to speed and everything for everybody here. So I think that it's your first line of PR is what I look at it at. And I think it should be up to the standards we want to do. So I think that go for the 15.
And it's one MTF, kind of.
So it's a 500 short now.
In April, it would be less than one.
You don't have a shot of the original sign, do you?
Oh, what?
There you go.
Okay.
Looks pretty good to me. I mean, it's Rossmore and big letters. I know I'm in Walnut Creek.
Well, you know your geography. And your city limits.
You know.
Dwight is right, though. There are a lot of folks who do not understand. When you try to explain that the roads belong to Walnut Creek, they're like, what do you mean? But we're in Rossmore. I actually had a lady come in and said, you have to run an article. I keep putting Rossmore as my city and they keep sending it down south. It's not because you're in Walnut Creek. So not everybody does. I mean, we now plaster it all over everything in here, right? But for the folks coming from the outside, there is still a little bit of a disconnect. And again, we talked about this as part of the marketing task force. The unfortunate thing is Rossmore exists in other cities, including down south.
Yeah.
And so you constantly have that problem where they think they're calling somebody else. So, but again, do you need it on the sign for 15,000? That's the question.
And if we go for a permit, what if the city says, oh, you can't do that, that's a directional sign, you have to go to the green one?
Yeah, so with
Are we
this, no,
risking
with
that?
this, I've already talked with the city, we're not making a structural change. All we're talking about doing, and the only permit we would need is because we'd need to put a temporary sign there because we're pulling the top part off to refurbish it.
Yeah.
But because it's a refurbishment, no, they will approve that because we're not changing the size, the structure, there's no demolition involved. So we're gonna get the permit for refurbishing. It's a brand new sign where you could be spending money on a design, go to the permitting process and they will likely say no. And at that
I
point.
know the mayor, and the vice mayor, and the.
We're advertising Walnut Creek.
Yeah, that's.
I know.
Can you go back to the other sign, what the change would be? Oh, no, that's not what I was thinking, but that's fine. No,
Well, if you want
that was
to, if
it.
you went to this, what I was gonna say.
No,
that's if you pulled it
no,
out.
not the one. I
Yeah,
was
no,
thinking-
this is the.
So I was actually looking at the plants around the bottom. They're
Oh,
looking a little
yeah.
tired, and I thought the new one would show what the new
No,
plants
yeah,
look
this
like,
is
'cause
just-
I mean, we need to do it all. So I didn't hear anything about what landscaping might be, and is that our piece of it? That would be our
So-
landscaping, right?
Technically, that land belongs to Walnut Creek, but they've allowed us, because it's our sign, to pretty much do whatever we want. I can absolutely go back to the city and ask if our crew can come in and spruce up the flowers.
That would.
I have no doubt they
Yeah.
will not say no to that. They would love it if we would do that work for them, so.
Yeah, why wouldn't
Okay, so I'll move that we incorporate Walnut Creek into the front entrance monument sign at the intersection of Tice Valley Boulevard and Rossmore Parkway. And recommend refurbishing the existing sign and approve an expenditure not to recommend, expenditure not to exceed $15,937. The RWC Capital Fund, authorized general manager to execute a contract with Golden Gate Signs for the project.
I'll second.
That's second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Walker,
Yes.
Bentley,
Yes.
Byram,
No.
vote is,
Motion carries.
motion
Thank
carries.
you. All right, anything else for the good of the planning committee? Seeing nothing, our next meeting is October the 9th. That's right around the corner. And we will not have an initial capital budget at that point in time. That will be in November, right? Am I right with that?
I'll have an overview.
It'll be an overview. I mean, there's, quite honestly, we don't have a lot of money to play with, so it's,
Oh, that's true.
so it's the continuing projects, what we anticipate with the continuing projects.
Yeah, we just spent another 15. Well, we didn't spend it yet. Finance committee has.
See what you do? Okay.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Okay.